Hello and welcome to Six Part. Today I'm gonna continue the story What If Deku Ate the Devil Fruit Part 3. If you enjoy this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
Izuku, Momo, Ochako, and Katsuki took the bus up to UA after taking a shower and putting on their school clothes. Getting ready for the second day of school. When they got to class, Izuku and the others went to talk to Tenya, while Katsuki walked over to his seat. While Itsuka was still there, she stopped by to say hello to Izuku for a while before going to her own class. Being in the heroics course meant that they wouldn't have time to join clubs, since the course would take up most of their time. Shinso was in a pretty interesting situation, and he could only join part-time. As soon as Shota walked into the room, the students stopped talking right away. 1 minute before the bell for class, they were already sitting down. It took you lot 4 seconds to settle down, said Shota. Looks like you all are gaining common sense. Everyone looked at Shota with worry because they thought anything could set him off. Shota said, because we didn't have time yesterday due to the orientation as well as a lack of common sense from you all, we'll be using this homeroom time to do introductions. What did we do wrong? Screamed the class in their heads. We'll start from seating order and go from there, said Shota with an uncaring look. State your name and something about yourself. The seating order will not change, because it makes it easier for me to take attendance since I can just go down the list to check who's here or not. Most of the class thought, lazy bum, again. Yuga stood up and introduced himself because he was the first person there. Shota, on the other hand, chose to use this valuable time to take a nap in his sleeping bag. Beginning for the whole class. Thought that introducing each one would be pointless and take up too much space, so I skipped it. Well, that was interesting, Izuku thought as he finished writing down all of his thoughts on his classmates and their possible quirks. The only one he didn't include was Katsuki's because he already knew about it and had a different section for him. He chose to make quick notes instead of drawing charts or pentagram graphs because he didn't have time. After some time, he would make a more detailed list of his classmates. Still, as far as UA when they were in high school, they had regular classes like English in the morning. It did, of course, depend on who was teaching the subject. The things that Cementos and Ectoplasm talked about were pretty much the same. Present Mike was a little more lively when it came to English. As it turned out, Midnight was a pretty good teacher when she wasn't showing off her body. Then there was lunch, where students could eat gourmet-style food that was priced like food in a cafeteria. This meant that it was much cheaper than buying the same food somewhere else. The following people sat down: Itsuka, Yui, Setsuna, and 2 new people, Kanoko and Reika. They were Izuku, Tenya, Momo, Ochako, and Tsuyu. They all introduced themselves before talking about their classes. Most of the work they had to do was the same. Itsuka said, "You guys seem to have the mysterious new foundational hero studies teacher first," as they looked at their class schedules side by side. Though it seems to alternate between our homeroom teacher and the foundational heroic studies teacher. I wonder why. As each of them talked about their ideas, Izuku couldn't help but smile as he ate his katsudon lunch alone. The kids were excited for their first heroics class when afternoon came around. Then Izuku heard a sweet, familiar laugh. He smiled while the other students stopped and looked like they couldn't believe what they were hearing. A loud laugh could be heard throughout the halls as someone said, "Ha ha ha ha." Someone in the class gasped, "No way." All Might started to open the door and said, "I am." Coming through the door like a normal person. After saying that, All Might posed as he walked in, and even though he was inside, the wind behind him made his cape flap. "Wow, All Might is a teacher here," Kirishima yelled with joy. Also excited, Tsuyu asked, "That costume is from the Silver Age, isn't it, Jero?" In fact, most of the students were thrilled that the #1 hero was going to teach them. The only ones who weren't were Tenya, who put on a stiff face to listen, Todoroki, who just nodded, and Izuku, who knew what was going to happen. "Its style is so different from anything that it's giving me goosebumps," Ojiro said coldly. As All Might walked into the classroom, everyone looked at him. "My name is All Might, and I'm the foundational heroic studies teacher. In this class, we'll be building your foundations through different trials. It will be the most important class in your curriculum and have the most units." At that moment, All Might began to flex, his back turned to all of them. All right, let's get to it, today's activity will be. He turned around quickly and pulled out a white piece of plastic that said, Battle. Combat Training. Katsuki suddenly got excited and smiled, ready to fight. And to go with that, All Might said, pointing to the side of a wall in a grand way. Are these? The walls started to move all of a sudden, and then shelves with suitcases on them, each with a student number written on it, came out. Your costumes that have been created in accordance with the quirk registry and the special forms you all filled out before school started, along with any details you wanted. The students were all very excited and couldn't wait to put on their gear. They didn't think they'd be done so quickly, but UA usually does that. Courage. All Might yelled, go change, and when you're done, come to ground beta, and then he ran off to the meeting place. As the students left ground beta, All Might stood at the exit, ready to greet them. Ladies and gentlemen, they say clothes make the person, All Might said as he saw the students come out of the shadows. Now you know. You're heroes. Izuku is the only character whose costume I won't describe because I think you all know what it looks like and don't want to waste words on something you already know. Izuku was the last one to leave. He looked around at everyone's costumes and started making notes in his head. What is that? A diaper. That's what Izuku thought when he saw Minetta's costume design. Izuku. Ochako called out and quickly jumped over to him to look at what Izuku had chosen for clothing. Izuku was wearing a plain teal vest with no sleeves and pants. He also had a utility belt around his waist. He laced his shoes and gloves with carbon steel to make his attacks stronger. His knee and elbow pads did the same thing. He had a small metal device on each side of his face, right under his ears. It could change into a red and black gas mask that covered his nose and mouth and gave him oxygen for 10 minutes. It stayed a small circle of metal until Izuku pressed down on both sides. And for some strange reason, Izuku didn't know why, he chose to add a straw hat with a green band around the middle without the brim. He wore his hat around his neck on a cord, which made it easy for him to move it from his head to his back. Finally, the straw hat had a green band with two little yellow horns that looked a lot like All Might's hairstyle. There was a small Chinese character on the other side of the band. It was a small thank you to All Might and Rakai for teaching him. All Might's name was on the front of the hat. Ochako was interested and asked, "What's with the hat?" "Just something I felt like wearing," Izuku said with a shrug. He also didn't know why he was wearing a straw hat until he saw Ochako and began to notice all of her curves. "Hee, I should have been more clear about what I wanted," Ochako said with a blush. "My suit turned out to be a skin-tight suit." That was only partly true. It was true that Ochako had not asked for a skin-tight uniform. She had instead asked that her chest and waist stand out a bit more so that Izuku would notice her more. It turned out to be a very tight uniform, but she wasn't upset when she saw Izuku looking at her body. "Yes, I bet these costumes were made by some sexy old man," Mina said. "I have my just the way I want it," Kiro, Suyu said with some thought. Because her quirk made her more like a frog. Her wetsuit was very tight on her so that she could keep her heat in better. Mina then looked at Momo and yelled, "Momo, did they mess up your costume? You can send that back." "Well, that's what I asked for," Momo said as she looked at herself. "But their design covers more skin than I asked for." It was funny, but this was the truth. To make big things for her quirk, Momo needed as much skin surface area as she could get. When everyone else looked at Momo, they saw that she was wearing a very revealing leotard that showed off her long legs and chest, which seemed to be the biggest in the class. "What do you do? Put on shows?" Ochako and Mina both thought at the same time. Then Ochako thought about Momo's choice of pajamas and closed her mouth as tough as she could. Izuku tried hard not to look over at Momo but failed. Must be because of the regulations for exposed skin in costumes bill. Izuku's looks made Momo smile as she answered, "That's right, the bill came up because of Midnight's debut uniform." "Ah, youth," All Might laughed as he saw his successor break out in a hot rash. Of course, some of the girls were also looking at his body, since it didn't hide how skinny he was. His thoughts went off for a while and then came back to Inko. He had to snap himself out of it for a while. Minetta stood a little farther away from the others and stared at all the girls in their costumes. Then she looked off into the distance and said, "Heroics is without a doubt the best department." All Might let out a loud cough to get everyone's attention, and they saw the small symbol on Izuku's hat. It was clear to him that seeing that made his heart warm because it meant a montage to him. "All right, you zygotes!" shouted All Might. "You all look very cool. Now, shall we begin with the combat training?" "Sensei, this is the battle center from the entrance exam. Does that mean you will be fighting in cities again?" Tenya asked. He had armor all over his body and face, which made him look like a robot knight. Not many people would have guessed that it was Tenya if not for the fact that his voice and movements were very robotic. All Might made a TS King sound before replying, "No, we'll be going 2 steps ahead. Indoor anti-personnel battle training. Villains' battles are usually seen outdoors, but the truly heinous and clever villains are more likely to lurk indoors. Imprisonment, house arrest, backroom deals. All of these almost always happen indoors or in the shadows in this hero-filled society of ours. With that in mind, for this test, you will be separated into heroes and villains for 2-on-2 team indoor battle." The rest of the class was shocked, so Suyu asked her in a brave voice, "Without basic training?" All Might clenched his left fist in front of him and said, "This is a battle to understand those basics. However, this time, the key point is that there is no robot you can just destroy." "So, what makes the winner?" Momo asked. She growled, "Can I still blast them until they die? Will they be kicked out, like Aizawa-sensei?" Ochako asked in a nervous voice. It was Tenya who raised his hand to ask, "How will we be splitting up?" While showing off his cape, Yuga asked, "Isn't my cape fabulous?" He wasn't even asking a question about the trial. "I'll answer your questions one at a time, so be quiet," All Might yelled with a sweat drop running down his face. "My quirk isn't super hearing." All Might coughed into his fist as the students quickly calmed down. "Anyway, here's the order of the questions I heard. Let me explain. No, I'll explain further, and yes, but be careful about that cape. There's a reason why my most recent uniform doesn't have a cape anymore." "Ah, that's right, you stopped wearing the cape after the rocket incident back in the US, said Izuku. "It snagged on your cape when it spontaneously went off and would have choked you if you hadn't quickly reacted and ripped it off you." "Oh, I see, that's why," All Might blushed. The truth is that he would have really choked to death that time. He was lucky that he freaked out and waved his arms around so fast that they caught the cape and ripped it off of him. David Shield, his old friend and sidekick at America, really told him how dangerous it was to wear a cape. He even showed him numbers about all the accidents that happened when heroes wore capes in the past. Of course, David had first told him about the cape when he made his debut. All Might laughed it off, saying that the cape made him look cool. He did have Gran Torino and Nanashimura as teachers, and they all wore capes. He thought that on the other hand, they either didn't go on missions where the cape could be used against them or took it off before going on the mission. "Anyway, let's move on," All Might said as Yuga pouted and looked at his fancy cape. "Let me explain today's task." He took out a small book he wrote himself to read. The situation is that the villain have hidden a nuclear weapon somewhere in their hideout. The heroes have to go in and dispose of it. The heroes will have a limited amount of time to either capture the villains or secure the weapon in order to win. As for securing, you merely need to be able to touch it for longer than 3 seconds. The villains, in order to win, must either secure the weapon until time runs out or capture the heroes. After training with All Might for so long, Izuku thought to himself, somehow, All Might reading from a script while teaching seems hilariously appropriate for him. And the situation itself feels very Western. "We will pick teams and opponents by drawing lots," All Might said as he held up a lottery box. Tenya was shocked and asked, "Is that really how we'll do that?" "Makes sense, considering pros often have to team up with other heroes from other agencies on the spot during emergencies," said Izuku. "Time won't allow you to wait for someone you want." "Ah, I see," Tenya exclaimed, then quickly bowed to All Might and said, "Please forgive my rudeness." When All Might turned away from them, he said, "It's okay. Let's get this going." Soon, the teams were put together quickly. Denki Kaminari and Izuku Midoriya are on Team A. Momo Yaoyorozu and Toru Hagakure are on Team B. Minoru Mineta and Kyoka Jiro make up Team C. Fumikage Tokiyami and Honta Siro make up Team D. Suyu Asui and Yuga Aoyama make up Team E. Tenya Iida and Katsuki Bakugo are on Team F. Koji Koda and Ochako Uraraka make up Team G. Eijiro Kirishima and Rikido Sato make up Team H. Mashirao Ojiro and Mezzo Shoji make up Team I. Mina Ishido and Shoto Todoroki are on Team J. There were 2 more lottery boxes next to All Might. One was labeled Villain and the other was labeled Hero. Alright, now that the teams are set up, let's see who goes against whom first. All Might asked, first up, we have Tima as Villain versus Tima as Hero, before realizing he had put all 10 letters in the wrong box. All Might quickly threw the A ball away and grabbed another letter from the Hero box. Whoops, just a test, he said. I mean, Team C will be the Hero team. When 4 of their names were called, they quickly left the crowd. Now then, the villains will go into the building and have 5 minutes to plan out their defenses. After that, the Hero team will enter, and the game begins. Everybody else will be in the monitoring room to view how you're do. Surveillance cameras will be everywhere to monitor your actions. Villain team. Use this time to adopt a villainous mindset. This is a practical experience, so don't hold back, go all out without fear of injury. Though I will stop it if things go too far, said All Might, though at the end, he looked at Izuku briefly. Izuku agreed, got it, don't use one for all in this fight. When he saw that they agreed to be quiet, All Might showed them the building they would be using before going to the monitor room with the other students. Kaminari asked, okay, how do you want to plan this? Before coming up with a plan, Izuku hummed to himself. With a grin, Izuku said, let's trick them. He then whispered this to Kaminari. When Izuku was done explaining, Kaminari's mouth made a big grin. I think I can do that, Kaminari said with a grin. Kyoka quickly plugged her earphones into the wall and said, 5 minutes are up. I can hear them on the top floor. They're tapping their feet a lot, like one of them is shaking their leg. Must be Kaminari. Come on, we need to get to the top floor fast, she said as she took out her earphone. Mineta was still on all fours and looked like she had given up on life. Oh come on, it's not hopeless just because we're up against the person who got the highest score on the quirk test, Kyoka said to cheer him up. When Mineta finally looked up at Kyoka, he saw dead eyes. He then started crying again. Why couldn't I been partnered with another female in the class? Or even fight another female classmate? Mineta asked. I could had Yaoyorozu ample cleavage, Ahido's slender hips, Hagakuri's already nude body, Uraraka's fine body, Asui unexpected boob size. Instead, I get the one that's overdressed and almost flat as a washboard. Kyoka got a tick on her forehead and really wanted to put her earphone jack in Mineta's ear and turn up the vibration. She knew she would need extra help, so she chose to hit him in the head with her earphone jack instead. Kyoka made fun of Mineta as she dragged her into the building. Stop complaining you damn perv, we're wasting time, she said. In the basement of the building, where the monitoring room was, the scene made everyone sweat. In spite of not being able to hear much, Mineta's reaction was clear. He wanted something. Kyoka and Mineta were slowly but surely making their way to the top floor after they finally woke up. Every time they went up a floor, Kyoka made sure they were still there. Weird, they haven't moved at all, Kyoka thought when they got to the top floor. There had been no ambushes at all. Mineta got ready to rush as he took the ball off his head and into his hands. Maybe they're just too sure of themselves, he said. With Kaminari's behavior, I'd agree, but not with Midoriya, Kyoka said. He doesn't seem to be the type to do so. Finally, they got to the door to the room where Kyoka had last heard them. Kyoka quickly slid her ears back into her boots and told Mineta to stay away from the door. She slowly counted down with her fingers and then blew the door open to catch the bad guys off guard. Mineta yelled as he ran into the room and threw all of his balls in different directions. Get ready, bad guys, for my grape rush. Kyoka rushed in and was ready to help when they both stopped in shock. All they could see was a room that's empty. Mineta looked around for the nuclear weapon and asked, where are they? Are you sure you didn't make a mistake? Kyoka quickly dug her earlobe into the ground to find them. I know they were here. They haven't moved since I last checked. She was shocked to hear them on the first floor again. Kyoka took out her earbuds and yelled, quick, back down. They got to the first floor somehow. They had to hurry because time was running out, so they jumped down the stairs without stopping. They jumped from the second floor to the first floor and fell into the trap. As they both jumped, Izuku appeared out of nowhere in front of them and jumped up to meet them, his arms and legs already spread out. Jiro swore, "Shit," as she tried to use her ears that can be stretched out to jack into her shoes and blast Izuku away, while Mineta threw more balls at him to stop him. They crashed into Izuku because they were going too fast down and Izuku was coming up too quickly for them to react. Izuku quickly wrapped his arms and legs around both of them, making a tight coil that stuck them. He was lucky that Izuku moved him so that he was at the same height as Kyoka and their heads were facing each other. Jiro was about to move her earphone jack and stab Izuku to get him to let go of her headphones when she heard a voice tisk. Denki turned around and stood right in front of her, his hands in front of her face. "Nah," he said. Kyoka's attention was drawn to the way electricity crackled between his fingers. "I'd surrender if I were you, heroes. One wrong move and I'll shock both of you until both of you are well done." At least Mineta tried to turn his head toward him and glare at him. "You wouldn't, you'd shock your teammate." "Well, that would be true," Denki said, getting into the bad act. "But my wingman here is made out of rubber. That means I can go all out while he makes sure the two of you can't escape. So why not do us a favor and surrender, and be our hostages?" To drive home the point, Izuku squeezed them even harder, which made them feel bad. They could not see a way out, so all they could do was look down in anger as All Might made the announcement. "Villain team win." When Izuku heard the news, he quickly let go of both of them. Kyoka asked them as they walked to the basement, "How did you two fool me into thinking you were on the top floor? And where was the nuclear weapon?" "Thanks to my smarts, we hid it on the first floor," Denki bragged. Kyoka slammed her earphone jack into Denki's ear and sent a small shockwave through him, making him scream in pain. That was just something she did out of habit. "Ah, okay, it was Midoriya's idea," Denki admitted. "We'll tell you more when we get back to the monitoring room," Izuku said. "All right, now that we're all gathered here once more, who can tell me who was the VIP here?" said All Might. A lot of people in the class said, "Midoriya, Izuku." "Yes, but can someone explain why?" All Might asked. Jiro almost said that it was because Izuku was a man, but he didn't. He thought it was true, but he knew it wasn't the answer. "I can," Momo said. Izuku knew they would be facing someone with sonar-like abilities, so he tricked Jiro-san into thinking they were on the top floor when they had actually hidden the nuclear weapon on the first floor. It was a risky move, but it worked because the weapon couldn't be on the first floor. He then had Kaminari-san keep tapping his legs and hands, making sure it was loud enough to make Jiro-san think there were two people on the top floor. The two-way headsets they were given were used to find them, and one was placed right under the stair rail. Kaminari-san added to the plan by using his personal communication device to access both the headset outside and the one in Izuku's ear. When Jiro and Mineta passed by, Izuku was on the first floor making sure the weapon was safe. To make it look like he wasn't there, he balanced himself on some crates so as not to touch the walls. As soon as they did, Izuku reached out from behind the building, grabbed Kaminari, and dragged him back to the first floor. When they were done, Jiro and Mineta panicked because they knew they were running out of time and slammed back down to the first floor. They weren't ready for the ambush because they were worried about time. Jiro and Mineta did well to go in slowly and quietly, but they were caught off guard. All Might thought, "Holy, she said a lot more than I thought she would." The rest of the class was quiet. "Excellent work," All Might said for a while, "well explained." Though young Midoriya and Kaminari did play it risky with the last part of going from the back of the building. Usually, in such raids, there would be policemen all around the building, giving the heroes up-to-date information. At this point, he knew he was just being picky. "Let's go to the next building," All Might said. "Can't have you Zygotes use the same building too much." He led them to a different building. Izuku was able to sneak up on All Might as they were going to another building. Izuku asked in a short sign language, "Are you sure you can go on for this long?" Because they had some people with them who could hear very well. "Don't worry," All Might replied with a wave of his hand. "I will always do what I'm supposed to do." Team D's Fumikage Tokiyami and Honta Siro are the heroes in Battle 2. Team F's Tenya Iida and Katsuki Bakugo are the villains. Even though Fumikage and Honta were setting up, Tenya was outside with Katsuki. "Hey, Four Eyes," Kamiya said. Please use my given name, Bakugo-kun. Tenya yelled back. My name is Tenya Iida. Like I fucking care, said Katsuki. You're pretty fast, right? Use that and check the second floor. Would it not be wise to check the first floor? Said Tenya. They might attempt the same as Midoriya. Deku only did that because he had enough time to analyze his opponents, said Katsuki. Much as I hate it, the nerd is good at that. Not to mention he could drag Thunderhead back to him. No, they'll try that psychology shit, but it'll more likely to be on the second or third floor than be on the top floor. Tenya thought to himself, those thoughts must come naturally to bad guys. When the timer ran out, Tenya quickly went to search the second floor, while Katsuki blasted his way up to the fourth floor through an open window. Tenya quickly found a strange room on the second floor a few minutes later. In the hallway leading to the front door, there were several of Honta's tapes to hold them up. I think I found it, Tenya said into the transceiver. I can see Zero's tape quirk all over the place. The other person replied, 4 eyes, tell me, where does that hall lead to? I failed to see the point of this, but it seems to lead to a corner room near the windows. That's a bait, ignore it. How would you? Gut instinct. Flat Face and Birdman Rally wouldn't choose such a place. Who are? Tenya thought, that must mean Zero and Tokiyami. Tenya went to the third floor because she trusted Katsuki. Soon after, Katsuki and Tenya both found another hallway with even more tape that led to a crossroads. How should we get through here? Tenya asked. We must avoid touching the tape while passing through. I get a better plan, said Katsuki as he raised his gauntlet. I've already filled this thing with enough juice to do this. 4 eyes, on my mark. Run forward, make a right turn, and go into the first room you see in front of you that has lots of shadows. Probably a dark room. They might have the door open, and if it shuts, then it's them. Wait WH. Just as Tenya was about to ask, Katsuki pulled the trigger off his gauntlet. While waiting, Honta and Fumikage were in a dark room with only half of the lights on. I hope they bite that bait, Honta said in a low voice. If they do, then that's their fate, Fumikage said. After a short time, they heard and felt the building shake. They had the door open, but it was ready to close at any time. A huge explosion destroyed all of Honta's tapes. Someone yelled, "Go! Close it!" Fumikage told Dark Shadow, which was his sentient trait. Dark Shadow nodded and slammed the door shut quickly. Honta then tried to tape the door shut. Tenya then drop-kicked the door open a second later, making it easy to remove the tape. Villains! Surrender this instant, or be prepared to fight, Tenya said loudly. Fumikage hissed, it is not our fate to lose, as Dark Shadow got a little bigger. Go. All right, it's time to fight, Dark Shadow exclaimed excitedly as he jumped forward, Honta supporting him with his tape. Tenya jumped over the tape and did a triple axel, then used her momentum to kick Dark Shadow. When Dark Shadow tried to hit Tenya down, he yelled, "What are you, a figure skater?" When Tenya saw the nuclear weapon, he steered clear of the attack. He jumped at his chance as soon as he saw it. He fell to the ground because he didn't see the low tape that Honta had set up ahead of time. Zero smiled as he walked up to Tenya and planned to wrap him up. Gotcha now. Who's got who? Katsuki jumped into the room and hung upside down in the air, right between Fumikage and Honta. Before they could do anything, Katsuki pointed both hands at them and let out a huge blast from each one. The shockwave threw them both back and they hit the wall hard. As Katsuki flipped through the air and landed on his feet, he said, "Hey, that was easy. Nice try, extras." He then walked over to the weapon and touched it, saying, "But you had the bad luck to be facing me." Hero team win. Geez, he's violent, said Mina. Almost seems like he should have been the villain team. Still, it was curious how he somehow guessed where the nuclear bomb would be and even knew that the second floor was just a bait, Momo said. Bakugo is pure instincts, said Izuku. He's always been a smart instinctual fighter. He'll always go with his gut. Without a doubt, MVP went to Katsuki Bakugo, but All Might made sure to scold him for his actions and the dangerous explosion. Battle 3. Mina Ishido and Shoto Todoroki of Team J are the heroes, and Koji Koda and Ochako Uraraka are the bad guys. "Y'all let's do this," said Mina. "Think they'll try to do the whole psychology thing Midoriya did?" No matter what tricks or defensive battle they have planned, it doesn't matter to me, Shoto said as he walked up to the building. He stopped the building from moving for a split second. Shoto found Koji and Ochako along with the nuclear weapon on the top floor. They were cold and damp. Even though Koji had animals ready to attack, they all ran away when the weather changed quickly. Hero team win. It was so sad for Ochako that she didn't even get to show off. Momo and Izuku had to comfort her. Hero. Momo Yaoyorozu and Toru Hagakure from Team I vs Villain. Mashirao Ojiro and Mezzo Shoji from Team B. Mashirao and Shoji put theirs in the corner room on the 5th floor and waited. Shoji put his ear to the floor to hear where they were coming from. Hey! Toru jumped up and down and said, I'm going to get serious, the gloves are coming off. The only parts of her costume that were gloves and sneakers, so all she did was take those off. She saw that the micro-transceivers they were given were floating in the air where Toru's ear should be. Toru, the transceiver will give away your position, said Momo. I think for this, we should stick together. You could use your hand to cover your ears, but you would be a hand down. Toru took it off and gave it to Momo while nodding his head. So how do you want to do this? He asked. Well, first, let's find out where they are, Momo said, pulling out infrared heat vision goggles. She looked around the building and saw them waiting in the room. So they want to play a defensive game, said Momo. They must be afraid Toru can sneak past them if they're not careful. Right when the game started, both girls ran quickly to where they needed to go, and Momo made things along the way to help them. At the door to the room, they stopped and started getting ready for their attack. They're outside this room, said Shoji, but they haven't tried to come in. Mashiro said out loud, I wonder why. Are they trying to get us to rush to them? After 30 seconds, they got the answer. The door blew up all of a sudden, shocking them both. After a few seconds, flashbangs shook the room. A sudden loud noise and white light filled the room, making them blind and deaf. Before the two defenders could get back, Toru and Momo had already charged in and taken the nuclear weapon. All Might yelled, Hero team win. Maybe it was a bad idea to stay in the room. Mashiro groaned as he slowly started to see again. Of course, Momo got great feedback on her strategy, and Toru loved being the center of attention. Eijiro Kirishima and Rikido Sato are on Team H, and Tsuyu Asui and Yuga Aoyama are on Team E. Eijiro and Rikido both agreed that they couldn't play tricks on each other, so they put the nuclear bomb on the top floor and waited. Yega and Tsuyu quickly climbed to the top of the building, where Tsuyu started to crawl on the outside walls. She quickly found them and called Yuga on the radio. Yuga yelled, hello, and get ready, as he slammed the door shut with his naval laser. He was quickly knocked out by Eijiro and Rikido, but they didn't see Tsuyu sneaking in. Hero team win. Good job everyone. All Might yelled when the last battle was over. We didn't get any major injuries today, and you all took it seriously. Very good job on your first training. Then, All Might threw them off with a wave and a flourish of his cape before running off. Eijiro yelled, so cool. Though having a proper class after Aizawa-sensei seems rather anticlimactic, said Tsuyu. Mashiro asked, why is he in such a hurry? He must be getting ready to patrol the streets. Such dedication despite being a teacher, Tenya thought. All Might, Izuku thought in silence, knowing the real reason. All Might told him how much time he had left, and teaching this class was using all of it up. The people of All Might didn't want the world to know that the symbol of peace they loved was actually getting weaker. It would be bad if the truth came out because it would cause chaos. In fact, All Might went straight into the staff-only room, shut the door quickly, and then changed back into his free self. He grumbled, shit. I barely have enough time to teach a class, as he quickly changed out of his costume. And to think I have to do this for 1B tomorrow. The students made it back to class and changed into their regular clothes before going back to see the teacher. Along the way, they came across a Shinso who was limping. He waved his hand and asked, yo, what did you do to get the limp? Hero training, Shinso said in pain. Since I'm just a reserve, my hero training compared to 1A and 1B will be different. What did you do for yours? We got to see All Might, Ochako said, then we went into battle training, being paired into groups. Though I barely got to do anything in my match. She went over right away to make her feel better and told her that she didn't get to do anything either. "Oh, that's nice," Shinso said with a wince. "What did you do? You seem to be in pain, so that would suggest something strenuous," said Suyu. "Just some sparring," Shinso said, remembering how he used to train. He learned from Shota Aizawa, who was his personal teacher. "You better appreciate the fact I'm giving up valuable sleep time just to train you up," said Shota as he started charging at him. "You're still quite behind to all the other students, so I'm going to push you to catch up." He had been mean in the spar. Izuku asked Shinso, "Are you okay?" when he saw that Shinso seemed to be staring off into the distance. He quickly came back to reality and said, "Ah, yeah. Just need to go to the nurse's office before going home." Hero classes met for a few more hours each day than the other classes. Most students had class until 3 p.m., but the heroics course had hero training at 4:45 p.m., which was the end of their class. When Class 1A said goodbye to Shinso, they went back to their class and saw Shota waiting for them. "I'll be getting a video of your battles later tonight to review," said Shota. "For now, just sit down and wait for your next teacher to come." Yes, the Foundation Heroic Studies class was so long that some of the other classes had to be pushed to the back. This meant that history and literature were still to come. People in Class 1B who didn't have that for the day could go home early, go to the gym, or work on their quirks in a special area just for students in the heroics course. Unless there was a special event, 1A and 1B would train on different days. The students started to pack their bags when class was finally over. At this point in time, Izuku probably got to know some of his classmates a little better because many of them rushed over to him to say hello while others talked to other people. "So Uraraka-san, wanna grab something to eat after this?" said Kaminari. "What do you like?" "Mochi," said Ochako. "But I was planning to go there with Deku and the others." The Kaminari asked, "Deku?" "Ah, that's Izuku's nickname, which he lets me use," Ochako said. He quickly stepped back and turned to face Suyu, saying, "Oh, okay." But not before muttering, "No way I'm stepping in his territory." When he got to Suyu, he tried the same line, but Suyu replied with bugs, hoping that would draw attention away from him. It worked really well because he quickly turned to Kyoka as a last resort. Kyoka shook a little in anger but agreed as long as he got paid. The news about All Might teaching at UA spread in just one day. High quickly spread to everyone, which is why reporters swarmed UA for 2 days in a row. One morning, Izuku was walking with Itsuka, Ochako, Suyu, and Momo when all of a sudden, a female reporter pushed her microphone right at her. "What's it like to be taught by All Might?" the reporter was eager to know. "Business management class," Izuku answered. Not interested in what they thought was a business management class student, that was enough to get the reporter and a few other people to move out of the way. "Suckers." Izuku laughed. Momo and the others laughed before making the same excuses Izuku did. Momo said she had to go to support class, while Itsuka and Ochako said they had to go to general ed. "When is All Might? Hey, aren't you from that sludge incident?" Katsuki yelled, "Fuck off." The reporter turned around and saw that Izuku and the others were gone. "Wait, I remember, that green-haired kid was also involved. That means..." The reporter growled at Tenya, "Crafty brat," and then turned to him. Tenya felt bad about what he did right away as he started a long speech. She quickly turned to Yuga, who also started a long speech full of flowery language. The cameraman saw Denki, Mina, and Toru posing for the camera and decided that these interviews were not worth the time on the tape. He quickly switched to filming other things. The three were thrilled to be on TV. Toru had to work extra hard, though, because she wasn't really being shown on TV. Just clothes floating around. The reporter asked Shota, "What's your deal?" as she turned to look at him and said, "About All Might." "Oh wow, you're a mess." Shota told them, "He's not on duty today, go home," and then he pushed them away with his hand and walked into the UA getting in. The reporters kept trying to get some kind of interview until the new female reporter decided to push a little harder and walked toward the door. A coworker yelled, "Ah, wait," but it was too late. The defense system went off, blocking the entrance. Visiting the the media called it, "barrier up," and they had no choice but to hang out and wait for a chance. Everyone in Shota's homeroom was already sitting down and waiting when he walked into class. Good. You all are gaining even more common sense now. I looked over the evaluations from All Might and added a few more comments here and there. You'll be getting them back during hero course time with me. Now then, onto homeroom business. Sorry for this sudden announcement, but today, many people in the class got chills as they wondered, is it a pop quiz? Shota finished, you'll choose a class president. It's a real, normal school activity. The class let out a happy sigh, and then they all raised their hands, hoping to be the one. Of course, everyone was so excited because the class president in the heroics class would be in charge of leading the heroes, a job that would be perfect for a future superhero. If I become class president, the girls will have show 30 centimeters of their thigh, Mineta said loudly. Izuku had the bad luck to be sitting right behind Mineta, so he hit her in the face with the back of his hand, though it wasn't hard. Still, it was enough to make him stop. Silence, everyone, Tenya said, causing the students to look at him. It is a job with the serious responsibility of leading others. It's not a simple job just for anyone who just wants it, but a calling that requires the trust of those around you. If we are to be democratic about this, then I propose an election to choose the leader. He did have his hand up the highest while giving that kind of speech, though, because he really wanted to be president. This took away some of his support for that kind of speech. He said, "This is just a classroom, not Congress. At least most of us have only known each other for a few days. That's not enough time to trust each other," Suyu said, putting her finger on her cheek. "Plus, everybody will just pick their own winner," Eijiro said. "That's exactly why," Tenya said. "The person who has managed to earn multiple votes will be the best suited individual for the job. Sensei, will you allow this?" Shota told everyone, "Do whatever you want, but make sure you all decide before homeroom is over." He then climbed into his sleeping bag and fell asleep. For everyone to vote, Tenya quickly gave out paper, and Izuku thought about his choice. He was willing to do it, but he knew that many other people were just as qualified, if not more so. His speech was great, and Tenya deserved some praise. He also knew that Tenya was very well organized. He thought he was a bit too stiff, though. He thought about it for a while and then wrote Momo's name on his paper because he knew she was organized and could handle it. Besides that, he knew she would also want the job. But if he had to choose between Itsuka and Momo, he would have probably gone with Itsuka because she was like a big sister to him at the dojo. The electoral votes were counted and written on the board so that everyone could see them. Izuku was shocked that Momo had 3 votes and he only had 2. He looked at the other results and saw that Ochako, Tenya, and Denki were the only ones with no votes. Katsuki yelled, "Who the hell voted for Deku?" Zero joked, "Well, it's clear you didn't." 0 votes, I expected it to happen, Tenya said with anger. It's to be expected in such the harsh reality of the sacred office. Mama asked with a sweat drop in her eye, "You voted for someone else? You came up with this idea, so what were you trying to do?" Sato asked with interest. "Okay. Then Yaoyorozu will be the class president and Midoriya will be the vice president," Shota said when he woke up on time. She smiled as she stood next to Izuku and said, I don't mind this setup." As the bell rang to end homeroom, Shota said, "We'll choose the other reps while you're with me." Soon, everyone was at lunch and waiting in line for their food. Izuku said, "I can't believe I'm actually class vice president," as he gave the order. "Why are you so shocked?" Momo asked as she ate her extra-large steak. "You voted for yourself and someone else did the same." "Because I voted for you, Momo," said Izuku. "I wasn't expecting 2 other votes." As they walked to a table and joined Itsuka and her friends, Momo blushed at what she heard. "So you guys have a class president?" said Itsuka. "I'm it for 1B, with Setsuna as my vice." Setsuna yelled, "Yeah, we're going to rock it." Izuku sat down next to her and said, "Momo is ours while I'm vice. But I don't know how I got 2 votes." "I voted for you," Tenya said. "I thought you were the best person to do that." When everyone looked at Ochako, she blushed and said, "I chose Momo-chan because I thought she could really do a good job." Izuku spoke up again. "That means Kaminari voted for me?" He smiled as he walked by and said, "Yep, couldn't leave my wingman hanging. You're the one who came up with the plan." "But Iida-san, didn't you want to be class president?" said Okako. "You even have the glasses and everything?" They all thought, "That's not the point. Wanting to be it and suitable for it are 2 very different things," said Tenya. I merely did what I judged to be correct. Ochako huffed as she ate her food. Tenya was already well known to Momo and the others. They knew that he was from a family of heroes that had been around for a long time and that he was the younger brother of Ingenium, who was a famous hero. Suddenly, there was a loud alarm in the cafeteria, and then there was a message. Level 3 security breach detected. All students are to evacuate outside in a swift and orderly manner. What's a level 3 security breach? Tenya asked a senior who stood up right away. It means someone infiltrated onto the grounds, shouted the students. In my 3 years here, this has never happened before. We have to get out of here. While everyone else quickly stood up, Izuku ate his lunch because of a rubber quirk. However, things went wrong when they tried to escape. A lot of students were trying to leave at the same time, blocking the exit and making it hard for everyone inside. Stop pushing. Ow, I'm going to fall. Kya. Who touched my butt? In that scene, Mineta was a little pleased with his short height and the fact that the girls' uniforms were skirts. Oh wow, yelled Oako. Setsuna yelled, stop pushing, I'll bite you, the other person replied. Like every other UA student, they act quickly in a crisis. Tenya grunted as someone pushed him in the face. Itsuka put out her hands a little wider to protect herself and said, I don't think it's that. I think they're panicking. Momo let out a gasp when a student's elbow almost hit her in the ribs. Izuku was lucky enough to be able to push through and take the hit without getting hurt. Mama Momo said, thanks, and quickly leaned on Izuku for safety. Who could have gotten in here? Izuku asked as he lifted his head and saw Suyu on the wall, dodging the crowd. Izuku yelled, Suyu-chan. Can you tell what's going on outside? Suyu saw him and heard him question. Then he looked out and saw that the press had made it into the UA grounds and were all around Shota and Hizashi. They quickly manned the nearest entrance to the school. Izuku was able to get his head closer to Suyu and see outside when Suyu yelled, it's the press. But everyone was still pushing harder and harder. Then there's no real need for this panic, Izuku said in a low voice. The students would really get hurt if they didn't stop. Momo, can you make me a megaphone? Izuku asked quickly as he put his head back on the desk and thought of a way to play. Momo quickly said, yes, made one out of her thighs, and gave it to him. Izuku told Itsuka, make me lighter, and throw me toward that exit. While Itsuka grabbed him and threw him toward the exit, Ochako quickly slapped her hand on his hands. Izuku spun around in the air and told Ochako to stop her quirk. During his flight, he chose to grab the person whose voice he knew was the loudest. Katsuyuki yelled, hey, what the hell, as Izuku pulled him up into the air. The first person to hit the wall was Izuku, then Katsuki. Izuku, on the other hand, was made of rubber, so he was fine and took the blow for Katsuki. Izuku grunted, Bakugo, yell into the megaphone as loud as you can, as he grabbed a pole to hang from Katsuki to keep him from falling. Katsuki could see that the crowd was getting more and more dangerous, and he was about to set off an explosion to stop them when Izuku grabbed him. He took a deep breath because he was in a better place to do so. As soon as that happened, everyone stopped what they were doing. Here, it's your show now, Katsuki said as he yelled through the megaphone. Izuku was able to bend down and speak into the megaphone, people, it's just the press. Don't freak out and push each other, it will only make things worse. People who were close to the window looked out before yelling that it was only the press. As soon as the police showed up to push the press away, the students started to calm down. Goodbye, bad mass media. Hizashi yelled as he cheered for the police. As they walked back to class, Ochako told Deku, that was so cool how you handled it. Setsuna said, yeah, good idea. Excellent work, Yui said, her face showing no emotion. Tenya said, oh, that just proves I was right to vote for you. It took a lot of courage for Izuku to say that Itsuka and Momo could have done the same thing if they had known what they were doing. Well, here's our stop, said Itsuka. See you all later. Looks like we get to train with All Might today. Don't wait up after school if you have something to do. Momo, Izuku, Ochako, and Tenya said goodbye with a wave and then went back to their own class. Like, dude, Bakugo, that was so manly and awesome, Eijiro praised Bakugo as they walked into class. TCH, I was already planning to use my explosions to shut them all up when Deku fucking grabbed me, Katsuki said. He smiled and said, even so, you were able to get their full attention. Yuga said, I would have been more elegant in getting their attention, but no one paid attention. That was so awesome how you and Midoriya got everyone to stop panicking, Mina said proudly. Yay, yay, Toru yelled, waving her arms around excitedly. Alright, settle down, said Shota when he came in. We still need to select a few more reps, such as who's going to take care of the class pet, who'll do the announcements in class, secretary, and the health committee representative. Choose among yourselves. I'm taking my nap. Alright, before we begin on any debate, said Momo, I propose that we don't let Mineta be the health committee representative. Agreed, all the girls said at the same time. She yelled, oh my gosh, I haven't even said anything. Katsuki grunted, not like we'd trust you with anything. Grape micrococcus. Blah, that was too long. I'm shortening it to grape midget. While Mineta started to cry bloody tears, everyone else just laughed. Izuku clapped his hands to get their attention and asked, okay, let's start picking the reps. Who wants to be the secretary? We need someone with fast and good handwriting for that. In the end, Tenya was the only one who was right for the part, and he took it very seriously. She quickly offered to take care of the class pet because she loved animals. Kyoka was put in charge of making announcements, and Toru was given the job of health committee representative. At the same time, Nezu glared at the front door of UA from the gate. The whole thing was gone, and he was sure that a reporter couldn't have done it. At first glance, it looked like the doors were broken. Just who instigated this whole thing, said Nezu. And did they slip in to get something, or did they just want to declare war? The day was nice and sunny. While they were making fresh bread, the birds were singing. People were going where they needed to go. Everything looked calm. Listen, heroes, don't come after me, or I'll kill this poor family, yelled Trapezius Headgear, a huge, muscular bad guy who was holding a family of 3 in his right arm. It was so bad that Mount Lady, Kamui Wood, and another hero could only clench their teeth. The bad guy was fast and strong, and Mount Lady couldn't change into her Titan form because she was afraid it would hurt the hostages. They all heard a voice as the bad guy seemed to start bragging. Have no fear, family. Missouri Smash. All Might ran right past the bad guy from behind and karate chopped him in the head, knocking him out right away while he protected his family. Why? Because I'm here on my way to work, All Might asked, which made the people who had gathered around the scene cheer. As he put the hurt family down and praised the police officers for their hard work, he couldn't help but hear another cry for help. It's a hit and run. All Might couldn't ignore the call for help, even though it meant he would be late for work, and he ran to the scene. He frowned as he jumped because he could feel his powers slowly going away after passing One for All. He was also losing the amount of time he could keep his muscles in shape. Still, he didn't feel bad about what he did, and he knew that Nana had told him back at UA that he would never be alone, even after One for All left his body, during the strange accident with Izuku. All Might thought to himself, it looks like my time is almost up, but I have to make it through long enough to face him if he comes back. Besides that, he had seen some good results in fixing his body. It would be nice to eat again. He stopped the car and couldn't help but sweat when he heard that a wanted person had locked himself in the next town over. He couldn't help but jump again toward the scene. Today's foundational hero studies will be a bit special, said Shota to his class after lunch. The original plan was to have Class 1A to be supervised by a 3-man team composing of me, All Might, and one other. Instead, Class 1A and 1B will be working together for this special class, along with the reserve student Hitoshi Shinso. Vlad King will also be accompanying us as the 4th member. I wonder what happened that made things change so much. Oh well, it means we can be with Itsuka, Izuku thought. Hanza asked, Sensei, what are we doing? Shota held up a card that said, Rescue. We'll be doing rescue training for everything from disasters to shipwrecks and everything in between, he said. The students looked at each other to see if they were nervous or excited. They started to talk more and more until Shota stopped them. You can decide whether or not to put on your hero costume or your PE clothes, as some costumes may not be suitable for such training or will limit you, said Shota. The training shall take place off campus, so we'll be taking a bus. Get changing and meet outside. At the end, they all put on their superhero costumes because they wanted to see what limits were put on them without their knowledge. Izuku was having a conversation with Momo and Ochako when he felt hands on his eyes. "Guess who?" "Hey Itsuka," Izuku said with a smile as he carefully took off the hands. He turned around and saw Itsuka taking off her costume for the first time. He almost fell right away because Itsuka was wearing a light blue kippah that made her look beautiful. She wore an extra protective corset around her waist to help support her body and chest when she used her quirk, Big Fist. Not only did her costume end at her knees, but there were slits on the sides that let her move freely and let Izuku see all of her legs, right down to the short black spats. Lastly, she had a brown utility belt in case something went wrong. As she wore a black domino mask and asked, "So, how'd I look?" she asked with a sly grin. Izuku almost yelled, You look great." Itsuka smiled and ran her hand down his chest. "Thanks, I like your hat. Your vest is a little off, let me fix that up." She was off in her own world, staring at the girls in Class 1B who were dressed as superheroes. "Those girls look delicious," Mineta said, but Tsuyu quickly hit her in the face with his tongue. A blonde boy yelled, "So this is Class 1A. Who has the best student? They must think they're so." He didn't have time to finish because Kendo attacked him quickly and gave him a karate chop to the neck. "Sorry about that, that's Nato Monoma," Itsuka said. "He has a bit of an inferiority complex, but he's a good person still." Class presidents. I suggest that we introduce ourselves to our fellow classmates from 1B, as they are a part of the heroics course, Tenya put forward. Momo and Itsuka agreed that it was a good idea as the two classes started to get to know each other and even made friends based on things like hobbies, likes, and dislikes. "Ah, Shinso-san," Izuku said to Shinso when he saw him show up late to the meet and greet. "Are you just going to wear your PE clothes?" "Have to. They haven't made my costume yet," said Hitoshi. "Unlike you all, I'm still only a reserve, and so don't get to order one like you all." "I'm sorry I brought that up," Izuku said with a blush. Hitoshi said, "Don't worry about it. If it wasn't for your suggestion, I don't think I would have been able to keep this reserve status. Your suggestion during the quirk apprehension test helped me out a lot. I should be thanking you." That being said, Hitoshi said, putting out his arms, "Don't think I'll stay here forever. I will become a hero, even if I have to knock someone out of here." Izuku couldn't help but smile when he saw how determined Hitoshi was. As Shota walked out, he looked like he wanted to sleep and said, "Okay, get to your buses. Shinso, you'll be with Class 1B for the trip to get to know them better, just like you were with my class the first time," he added. Everyone quickly boarded their assigned buses and was on their way to their destination in no time. Another pair of seats had been taken by Ochako and Momo, leaving Izuku sitting next to Tsuyu and Sato. "You may know that I usually say what's on my mind," Tsuyu said, then turned to Izuku and said, "Izuku-chan, your quirk seems like a mix of rubber and all might." Izuku's thoughts stopped for a moment when he heard this, which gave Eijiro a chance to speak up. "Whoa, hold up there. Midoriya's quirk is having a body that feels like rubber. He's strong, but not all might strong." "Jero, Izuku-chan managed to punch a flying truck away before," said Tsuyu. Sato asked, "Wait, when did that happen?" "We met once a month before the entrance exam, Jero," said Tsuyu. "I was with my siblings when a truck came flying towards us from a villain." Izuku-chan stretched out his arm and punched it, stopping it in its path. "Dude, that's so manly," Eijiro said. "You have a strength enhancement quirk too? Man, you can do a lot of flashy stuff." Not exactly," Izuku lied, his mind racing. But Eijiro had already changed the subject. "All I have is my quirk hardening. It's good in a fight, but it's not very flashy." Izuku changed the subject and said, but it's still pretty cool. Your quirk is more than enough to go pro." "Yes, but a famed hero also has to think about that," Eijiro sighed. "My naval laser is at a pro level in terms of flashiness and strength," said Yuga. To make Yuga wince, Mina teased, "Yeah, until you blow up your own stomach." "Well, if you want to talk about strong and flashy," said Eijiro, "then it's gotta be Midoriya, Bakugo, and Todoroki, our monster trio here, though I don't know if Class 1B also has them too." Bakugo is always mad, so he'll never be popular, Tsuyu said straight out. This made Bakugo twitch with anger and roar in response, which Tsuyu used as an example. Bakugo being teased. That's a sight I have never seen before, Izuku thought as Denki joined in the fun of making fun of him. Momo sighed and said, "What a rude conversation." Ochako laughed and said, "I think it's funny." This was going on while Itsuka tried her best to include Hitoshi in conversations on the 1B bus, which was something he wasn't used to. He found it hard to talk to anyone because he had been seen as a possible bad guy for a long time. "So what is your quirk anyway?" Setsuna asked in interest. "Never saw it." Itsuka said, "I think I have a bit of a clue." He was thinking about the time Hitoshi stopped a fight. "Brainwashing," Hitoshi replied. Jurado Shishida automatically said, "Wow, that quirk sounds villainous," which made Hitoshi wince. It was all over his body, and he wore glasses. "How dare you judge someone based on a quirk? Sin no more." Abara Shiozako, who had vines for hair, told Shishida-san. She then hit Jurado on the head with her vine. "Ah, sorry, Jurado quickly said. "I didn't mean to say it like that. Sir Shinso. Lady Shiozaki, please forgive my outburst. I, of all people, should know what it's like to be judged solely based on appearance and quirk, beast. Many people considered me to be a violent and mindless beast due to it when I am a gentleman at heart." "It's okay," Hitoshi said with a smile when he saw how sorry he was. "Ah, such an impressive quirk," said Monoma. "Tell me, do those Class 1A know about your quirk?" "Not all of them, I think," Hitoshi said, "though I wouldn't be surprised if they all did. Midoriya was one of the first to know, and I do owe it to him for, to say the least, think outside the box." "Ah, such a shame," Monoma cried. "You could have been our secret weapon against them. Itsuka, sadly, won't let us." The mocking words he was about to say were cut off by Itsuka's chop. "Izuku has been my childhood friend for years. I'm not going to break it up just for some class rivalry," said Itsuka. "Keep it up and I'll chop you." "You already did," the people in the crowd thought. "Okay, students, get ready to get off the ship," barked Vlad King. "We've arrived." They all got off the bus and saw a big dome-shaped building. Then they saw someone waiting for them in a big space suit. Individual in the spacesuit said, "Everyone, I have been waiting for you." "Oh my gosh, it's the space hero number 13, Ochako said. "He's my favorite hero. The gentleman hero who does his best work in rescue scenarios," Izuku told me. "What a kind heart. Always there to help those in need," Abara said. "He really is a gentleman," Jurado agreed. They were quickly led into the dome-shaped building, where they saw a lot of different rescue training areas that were all designed to look like real disasters. "It looks like Universal Studio Japan," exclaimed Eijiro and Tetsu, a different student who had some strange dots around his eyes. "Flood zone, landslide, fire, etc., said 13 proudly. "Every natural disaster you could imagine, I've created a simulation of it. I built this facility myself. I call this place the Unseen Simulation Joint, otherwise known as USJ." Everyone in the class thought, "So it's USJ. 13. Where's All Might?" said Shota. "He's supposed to be here." As Shota and Vlad King got closer, 13 whispered and held up 3 fingers. "That's about it. It looks like he overdid it on hero work on the way here and reached his limit. He's now resting in the lounge back at UA." "That's the height of irrationality," said Shota. "I would have called Hizashi over then instead. Well, let's get this started first." Vlad King sighed and looked at Izuku. "HMPH, my class will do better than yours," he said. He wasn't sure what the boy had to do with All Might, but he was sure it was something. Why else would he bring the child to the US? To get better instead of going to the closest hospital? Even though All Might, Recovery Girl, and Nezu wouldn't say anything. "Ah, Sekijiro-sensei," said Izuku. "Thank you for your help that time. I never did get to thank you." Vlad King waved and said, "Ma, as long as you're fine." Itsuka asked, "You met our teacher before?" "Only once," Izuku said, then turned his attention to 13. 13 then started talking about his quirk and how dangerous it was, so Izuku dropped the subject. 13 went on to talk about how each teacher's trials had brought out their hidden strengths and the risks of using them against someone. This class will show you a new perspective, said 13. You will learn to utilize your quirks to save lives. You all have powers that are not meant to harm others, but to protect and save. I hope that after this day, you will leave with the understanding that you are all meant to help people. Thank you for listening. The students applauded 13's speech as he bowed. Ochako declared, "He's so awesome," with a cheer. As if light were shining on Ibara, she said, "Such a gentle soul. I pray that he never be hurt." Shota clapped. "Okay, let's get going. First." All of the lights went out at once because of an electrical surge. The room became much darker. They all got a chill up their spines and knew right away that something was wrong. All of a sudden, a dark purple crack showed up in front of the fountain in the middle of the dome. The crack suddenly got bigger, and the purple mist spread out far. As the pro heroes turned their attention to it, a hand and a face with a severed hand on it came out. Shouting, "Gather up and don't move," scared the students. "Do what he says," yelled Vlad as he clenched his fists. 13. Protect the students. Class presidents, keep your students in line and get ready to lead them out. Bad guys are coming. Because they were protective, the students couldn't help but follow them as bad guys came out of the fog. The most noticeable ones were the man whose body and face were covered in severed fake hands, the huge humanoid whose brain could be seen clearly, and the purple mist that slowly took the shape of a person. "I see only Eraserhead, 13, and Vlad King," said the purple mist. "According to the staff schedule, All Might should have been here, not Vlad King. Did they swap? And I see 41 students instead of 20. They must have decided to change plans when we broke in. As expected of UA, though luckily we thought of that possibility beforehand." Shota growled as he put on his goggles, "So they're the scum who broke the law." The man with his hands all over his face and body asked, "Where is All Might? I even brought all these people here. All Might. The symbol of peace. I wonder if he'll come if we kill some kids?" Quite a few of the students got chills when he said that so casually and out loud for everyone to hear. Eijiro yelled, "Villains! How did they get in here?" He also said, "Yeah, who would be so stupid as to sneak into a school for heroes?" The kid asked his teacher, "Sensei, what about the trespasser censor?" "We have them," 13 said, but he was not sure. "Does that mean they are only here or at the whole school?" said Shoto. "Either way, if the sensors aren't working, that means someone has a quirk that's disabling them. And since we're cut off from the main campus," Monoma continued, without his usual sarcastic and showy speech, "nobody knows what's going on here at a time when we're supposed to be here. Pretty smart for a bunch of fools." "This surprise attack is well planned and meant to kill," Yui said, her normally serious face gone. 13. "Begin evacuation," said Shota. "If they're jamming the sensors, then most likely they're jamming communications. The quirk is either an electrical-based one or a radio wave-based. Kaminari, try to contact the school with your quirk. Class presidents, organize your classes. Make sure you keep a head count on everyone," warned Vlad. Tetsu yelled, "You folks can't fight all of them by yourselves." Eijiro replied, "Yes, we can help, HMPH, don't underestimate us pro-heroes," laughed Shota. "No good hero is just a one-trick pony." He and Vlad King both jumped off the stairs and went straight at the enemy. A bad guy with gun barrels for fingers smiled and said, "Shooting squad, let's go." At least 3 bad guys tried to shoot them, but Eraserhead erased their quirks, so their attacks didn't work. Eraserhead already had all 3 of them wrapped in his steel cloth scarf when they got off the plane. All 3 of them flew into each other above Eraserhead's head and knocked each other out with a quick tug. "Dumbass. That's Eraserhead, he can cancel quirks out just by looking at you," said a bad guy. "Canceling quirks, EH?" a cocky bad guy asked as he charged forward with 4 arms and rocks all over his body. "Let's see if that works against heteromorphic mutant-type quirks." "Nope, I can't," Eraserhead said blandly as he punched the bad guy in the face, distorting it as he did so and then knocking him out. "However, according to statistics, people like you tend to do well in close combat." Once Eraserhead threw his scarf forward and wrapped it around his opponent's leg, he said, "So I've already taken the proper countermeasures." He then dove a punch from another villain and kicked him during his spin. He threw the bad guy into a group of bad guys and knocked out most of them at once. 4 other people tried to jump on him, but Vlad quickly punched them in the face and knocked them out. A pretty big bad guy yelled, "Got you!" But Vlad was able to catch it with one hand. Suddenly, blood poured out of his gauntlet and hardened around the bad guy's hand. The bad guy said, "Ew, let me go." Vlad's response was to roar and hit several other bad guys with the bad guy as a bat before spinning and throwing the bad guy at what looked like the leader of the bad guys. The other huge one caught the bad guy before it could land on the one with hands all over him. The leader said, "Nomu, get rid of him. He's in the way of my view." Nomu squawked and pushed the bad guy away. The mist villain sighed and said, "Shigaraki Tamura, please don't throw anyone we gather like that." Shigaraki grunted, "It doesn't matter, Kurogiri. We have plenty more to spare. Though even in a mob, they can't seem to take down those 2 pro heroes." He began to think about what was going on and found out what the 2 heroes were good at. It was Shigaraki who growled, "I hate pro heroes. Normal bad guys can't beat them." Every time Eraserhead blinked, Kurogiri saw his chance. Sensei admired Hitoshi as he saw Eraserhead kill a lot of bad guys with just CQC in his scarf, only using his quirk when he had to. "Let's go," Izuku said, pulling Hitoshi along with him with Setsuna's help. The class presidents led from the front, and the vice presidents made sure no one fell behind from the back. 13 was quickly guiding both classes to the exit when Kurogiri stepped in front of them all and blocked the way out. Kurogiri said, "I can't let you all leave so easily. Damn it, he took that window the second I opened my eyes. He's probably the most bothersome of all of them," Eraser yelled to himself. Vlad heard what was going on and yelled, "Go!" He turned his blood into 2 big war hammers and hit a few bad guys off the path to make a way. "Get to them. I got this here." No time for pleasantries," said Kurogiri. "I guess I'll make this quick. We, the League of Villains, have trespassed this home of heroes, UA High, so as to end the life of All Might, the symbol of peace. Though since he's not here, my role remains unchanged." 13 put one of his finger caps out to fight, but Katsuki, Eijiro, and Tetsu all moved quickly to attack Kurogiri. Eijiro and Tetsu each made their fists stronger, and the 3 of them aimed for Kurogiri's head while Bakugo hit the bottom with both hands. Pony shot her horns into the cloud to do more damage before the dust even settled. Eijiro teased, "Ha, didn't expect us to take you out first, did you?" "Yeah, we kicked your butt," yelled Pony, switching back to English because she was so excited. As the dust started to settle, Kurogiri said, "Oh my, that was dangerous. Even if you are all students, you are all golden goose eggs." 13 pointed his finger at Kurogiri and said, "Students, get out of the way," but it was too late. Hitoshi yelled, "Hey, what are you doing?" hoping Kurogiri would start talking, but Kurogiri was smart enough to avoid that. "Do the work first, then tell everyone about it." It looked like Eraserhead might make it up the stairs, but he had to duck right as something hit the stairs next to him. It asked, "Vlad? What happened?" As Vlad picked himself up, he grunted, "That damn brute with the brains. The one they call Nomu hit me even with my blood shield up." In fact, Shigaraki told Nomu to stop Eraserhead when he broke away. Nomu roared and charged at Vlad, who tried to block him with a blood shield. Nomu only punched the shield, which broke and threw Vlad flying backwards. Vlad and Eraserhead both yelled, "Shit, the kids," as they spun around. "Go, I'll take care of this." The masked Kurogiri let his fog spread and cover most of the students. Tenya grabbed the person closest to him and ran out of the mist. It was Ochako and a woman with a bob haircut named Kanoko Komori. Shoji grabbed Yuga and Kosei Subaraba because they were the closest to him. He then sank into the ground to keep from being sucked in. Yosetsu Awase pressed his feet into the ground and his hands into Sato and Tagaru Kamakiri's skin so they couldn't pull away. Jiroda changed, grabbing Nirengeki Shoda and Koda to hold himself down like Shoji. The others tried to stay steady or avoid getting hit, but they were all sucked into the portal in the end. Hideyoshi and Izuku looked at each other quickly and then threw Setsuna away from the mist before it could grab her. As the mist surrounded them, Izuku yelled, "Everyone, grab hold of someone." He then grabbed Hitoshi and put out his arm to the closest person, who was Sen Kaibara. My job is to scatter you all and watch as we torture you while you writhe in pain, Kurogiri said when he was done with his task. Tenya yelled, everyone, in fear as the mist cleared, revealing those who had stayed put or gotten away from it. Less students were thrown off, Kurogiri thought. All the better, I suppose, though. That just means less students in the other areas have sent them. 13 could only glare as he thought about all the kids. Going back to UA, Toshinori was telling himself off for putting hero work ahead of teaching. It was time for him to get more rest, but if he did that, class would already be over. Before he could leave, Principal Nezu caught him in the lounge, where he was preparing his rather long-winded speech about setting priorities. He also mentioned that there were many hero agencies in town that could have solved the issues. Both of them were peacefully unaware of what was going on at USJ. Tenya quickly asked Shoji, can you find out where everyone is? Shoji stretched out his tentacle limbs and turned them into ears and eyes. He then made sure that all 41 of the students were still alive and at USJ. Sato, who was about to eat some sugar, asked, what do we do? Attacks with physical power don't seem to work on this bad guy, Jirota growled as a beast. 13 thought about it for a second and then said, Tenya Iida, I need you to do something important right now. You need to run back to school and tell them what's going on here. In the ruins area. Die, oh shit, run away. Mommy. When Bakugo shot his way through dozens of bad guys, he laughed. Think he needs help? Asked Hiryu Rin, a man with a braided ponytail. I yelled, hey, we can't let him have all the fun, as Eijiro punched his way forward. Tetsu agreed and said, hell yeah, of course I have to deal with all the jerks, Hiryu sighed. Another bad guy tried to stab Hiryu and yelled, this one's weak. Hiryu turned his skin into hard scales, which made it easy for him to block the knife and then punch the bad guy in the head. Hiryu smiled and said, then again, I guess I can't argue with their results. He then jumped into the fight. Eijiro jumped up when he saw one of the bad guys running away from this hell. Eijiro tucked his legs in and yelled, throw me. Katsuki smiled as he threw an explosion at Eijiro's feet, which made him fly into the bad guy. Tetsu yelled, hey, me next, as he jumped up in the air too. Katsuki did the same thing again, and Tetsu was able to fight two more bad guys before he crashed into the wall. Katsuki asked Scorpion Hair in a scary voice, want to join in on this? As small explosions came out of his hands. Hiryu yelled, no thanks, and put his hands up to make his point clear. The area of fire Kojiro Bondo, who looked like a glue bottle, snarled, this isn't good. I can't get them sticky with all this fire. His skin was as black as night, and he grunted, not enough shade. I can't get into the shade to help out. Too much light for me too, Fumikage agreed. Dark Shadow said, yes, it's way too bright for me to go all out. These flames are hindering me from acting upon the Lord's name to punish these evildoers, Abara said. Ha ha ha. Can't do anything here, can you? Said one of the villains. Especially you, Ice Boy. Son of Endeavor indeed. But a bit of fire, and you can't use your ice quirk. Wish you had your daddy's quirk now, don't ya? You all seem to be getting the wrong idea, Shoto growled when his father was brought up. Just because there's so much fire around doesn't mean I can't use my quirk. It just means I don't have to thaw myself as much. The whole area went from being a city on fire to being frozen in an instant with a cold breath and step. Right away, all the bad guys were frozen and couldn't move. A bad guy whispered, what the hell? His teeth were chattering from the cold. What are you? Was almost too hard for him to whisper. He would have yelled louder if he had been able to. Shoto didn't answer his questions, but he did ask some of them why and how they were going to kill All Might. Shoto told the bad guys exactly how they would die if he didn't do anything. This made them shake with fear. Area of flooding, he yelled, wah. As he jumped into the flood zone, he quickly started swimming up when all of a sudden, a bad guy with a shark face appeared in front of him. Oh look, a friend has come, the bad guy said with a grin. It's nothing personal, but goodbye, sucker. Right away, Suyu showed up and hit the bad guy in the face with a dropkick. She then jumped off of him and grabbed Denki with her tongue before quickly swimming away. The bad guy flew off and said, sayonara. Suyu quickly swam up, carrying Denki on her tongue and Mineta in her arms. "Sayonara," she croaked. When Tsuyu got to the surface, he carefully put Denki on the boat, where Kyoka and Hanta were already waiting. Before they went into Kurogiri's portal, Hanta grabbed Kyoka. When they came out above the shipwreck zone, he was close enough to throw out his tape and pull them both onto the ship. He coughed and rubbed his face against Tsuyu's chest from the side. "For a frog. Your breasts are pretty big," he said. Before getting angry, Tsuyu blushed a little and threw Mineta into the ship with a lot more force than had to be used. She climbed quickly up the boat to the deck to stay safe. "Oh good, you're all right," Hanta said. "You guys see any more of our classmates here? I only saw 3 splashes before landing on the boat." "Kiro, I didn't see anyone either," Tsuyu agreed. Kyoka put her earplugs in near the water and said, "Hold on, I'll check it out." The next second, she quickly pulled it out in a panic. Her face showed that she was scared. Kyoka gasped, "We're completely surrounded." It was as if to punctuate what she was saying, taunts began to come from the water. One of them yelled, "We're going to kill you," which made Mineta feel a little scared. "Grr, if they weren't in the water, I'd electrocute them all," Denki said loudly. Their heads were all lit up by a light bulb except Denki's, who was the power source for it. Some of the top deck was quickly taped off so that everyone could stand on it while Tsuyu and Kyoka pushed Denki off the boat. When Denki fell into the water, he yelled, "What the hell? I can't fight in the water. I can't be trusted." This made all the bad guys very confused. Kyoka yelled, "Use your quirk, water conducts electricity." Denki blinked and then put on a mean grin. "Oh yeah," he said. "I'm super strong and reliable now." The bad guys saw electricity coming from Denki's body, but they didn't quite understand how dangerous they were. The ones closest to Denki tried to attack him, while the ones farther away tried to get away, but it was too late for them to do anything. A huge flash of lightning went from Denki's body to all the bad guys at the same time, shocking them all. To make sure there was no current left over after the blast, Hanta carefully stepped off the pad of tape he had made and threw a tape line to Denki. It stuck to Denki's back before Hanta pulled him back onto the boat. Hanta praised him, "Nice job, dude. You got them all." Denki replied, "Way," with 2 thumbs up and a retarded look on his face, which showed he had gone too far. While the others were trying to figure out if they could use the boat to get back to shore, Kyoka couldn't help but fall to the floor and laugh at his face. Kyoka was finally put in charge of looking after Denki for a while. "Squall zone, over there, get him." When Mashirao heard a voice, he was performing hit-and-run moves, killing several bad guys while trying to regroup with anyone he could find. "He. Why don't you give up, girl?" said a voice. "Though we can't really see you, the rain gives us a good idea what your body is like." Mashirao quickly jumped up on a nearby ceiling and saw Toru surrounded by 4 bad guys. Because of the rain, she was no longer invisible. They could all see the shape of her body in the water. "Stay away, or I'll kick all of your asses," Toru yelled as she slowly moved away from them until she hit her back against a wall and became stuck. Now, if you just let us have some fun, I'm sure you can walk away from this alive," he said. Mashirao was about to step in when all of a sudden, the wall behind her gave way and wrapped around her. "What the? Ka-thunk!" All 4 bad guys were knocked out at once by big words. As she came back, Toru smiled and said, "Gotcha." Manga Fukidashi and Juzo Honanuki were with her. Just as she looked up, Mashirao jumped down to meet them. "Oyaa, you're safe." Toru cheered and gave Mashirao a tight hug. Before Toru sneezed, Mashirao turned red when he felt something soft press on his chest. Mashirao took off his karate gi and put it on Toru. "Here, it's not much, but use this to keep yourself warm," he said. Toru grabbed it. FWOM crackle. All of a sudden, manga writers came up with words that gave off heat and warmed everyone up. As they started to leave the room, Juzo asked, "Where's Monoma?" They were all holding on to the words manga had written. "Right here," said Monoma as he came in front of them. "Come, I've found the exit already. I've already checked to see if there was anybody else with us at this zone. From what I can tell, it's only the 5 of us here." Mashirao asked, "How do you know?" "I just know," Monoma said with a smirk. "Mountain area by chance," All of the students who were brought here were girls, which made the bad guy very happy. Minia said, "Wow, there are a lot of them. They seem happier than they should be," Reiko said. When Itsuka, Momo, and Yui saw that most of the bad guys were looking at them with a leering look, they just narrowed their eyes. When one of the girls stepped out first, the other four were ready to fight. Now, no need to fight," said the group's supposed leader. "I'm sure we can come to some sort of agreement. If you girls let my boys have fun with you, we'll return you back to your family and lives mostly unharmed. Resist, and well, we'll still have our fun. Who knows, maybe you'll enjoy it." When the man made his choice, all of the girls growled. Mina laughed and said, "Are you sure you can handle this? I bet you couldn't even please any woman." She then smiled maniacally and said, "Plus, my quirk is acid. Bring that shit near me, and I'll just melt your dick off." The males all winced and crossed their legs, and one of them actually threw up and yelled, "Why does it burn?" It turns out that the man had dated someone with a trait like Mina's and used it to show how manly he was. "Okay. Everyone except Pinky," the leader said in a high voice. Suddenly, rocks hit him from behind, slamming him into Itsuka's big fist and crushing him right away. Itsuka told Reiko, "Good job. Now let's show these jerks why they shouldn't underestimate us." All of them said, "Right," as Momo started making weapons for them. Some of them float in the air thanks to Reiko's magic, and Yui picked up some rocks and threw them at the bad guys. When Yui put her fingers together like Ochako did, the bad guys were about to laugh at the pebbles she threw. The pebbles suddenly got bigger, and in a surprise attack, they killed a few bad guys. Momo yelled, "Charge!" and then started hitting some bad guys with a metal staff, showing how good she was at Bojutsu. Zone of landslides. There were bets being made between some of the bad guys while they were waiting. One of them bragged, "I bet this fight will be over in less than a minute." Someone else yelled, "I bet 30 seconds. The last one bragged, "I bet 10 seconds, as the portal opened and Izuku, Hitoshi, Senkaibara, and Pony came out. Izuku quickly reached out and stretched his arms to the ground, zipping him to the ground faster. Then, all of a sudden, he inflated himself, letting the others land on him and safely bounce off. Before anyone could say anything, Izuku shrunk back to his normal size and stretched out his right leg 50 meters, giving his whole body the power of one for all. A lot of bad guys tried to attack or defend themselves, but Izuku's attack went right through them all. The person who said he could do something in 10 seconds turned to his friend just as he was about to attack the last two bad guys. "You know, I never specified who would win, just that the fight would be over in 10 seconds, said the bad guy. Meaning I win the bet. You cocky as..." The female bad guy couldn't finish because Izuku's attack hit the last few of them and knocked most of them out. Senator John McCain asked, "Whoa, overkill?" "No, we need to regroup as fast as possible," said Hitoshi. "The faster we do, the safer everyone will be." "Can you use your quirk to interrogate the ones still conscious?" Pony asked. "My quirk doesn't work that way," said Hitoshi. "I can direct a person's action, but I can't make them verbally tell me stuff." Izuku grunted, "Then we'll make them talk," as he reached out and wrapped his arms around one of the still awake bad guys who was trying to get away. The male bad guy yelled, "You'll never get me to talk." Sen took over the questioning while Izuku tried to think of a way to get him to talk. He put his hand up to the bad guy's eye level and used his gyrate ability. He felt like a drill as his hand began to spin very quickly. "If you don't tell us what we want in the next minute," said Sen, "I'ma shove this hand up your ass." The bad guy wailed, "Not my ass," and squeezed his anus as hard as he could out of fear of having his ass drilled in. "If that doesn't help, then I'll fire my horn cannons up it too," Pony told me. The bad guy yelled, I'll talk. Central square or entrance. There are a lot of students here. I should be careful, or some might get away, Kurogiri thought to himself. As Kurogiri blocked the exit, the others looked nervously at each other and then at him. "Students, when the opportunity arises, quickly escape from here," said 13 with a serious tone. "Then whoever is the fastest, run towards Ua and warn the staff about the situation here." "Discussing your plans in front of me?" said Kurogiri, "a bit foolish, isn't it?" 13 told Kurogiri, "It's not stupid when you can't do anything to stop it, before opening a finger cap and using his quirk to try to catch him. Back at the middle plaza, Vlad and Shota were both out of breath. When Shota tried to go up the stairs, the Nomu emerged out of nowhere and punched him and Vlad back into the plaza. In a fight for their lives, they were trying to kill as many bad guys as they could. As soon as Nomu and Tamura joined the fight, things got worse. Tamura knew exactly when Shota would blink, and he put his hand on both of Shota's elbows. Shota couldn't do anything because Tamura used his quirk, which slowly broke down Shota's elbow. Even though Shota kicked Tamura away, the damage was already done. The bad guys tried to use the fact that Shota couldn't use his right arm against him, but Shota easily beat them. Even so, it got hard for him to breathe as he dealt with the others, and Tamura called him out on it. When Shota turned to look at Vlad, he saw Nomu stomping on his face and blood pouring out of his head. "Oi, Vlad, a little help," he said. Tamura teased, "Oh, and just so you know, I'm not the final boss." The Nomu let out a roar and hit Shota. Back at the entrance, 13 kept trying to catch Kurogiri with his quirk, but the mist villain opened a portal right behind him and used his own quirk against him, which made all the students very scared. Tenya quickly ran for the exit as 13 started to fall. 13 had told them to do this. "I can't allow that," said Kurogiri. "If you were to call the other teachers here, then it would put us at a difficult position. We need only to kill All Might." Tagaru yelled, "I'll stab you first," as blades grew out of his arms and jumped at Kurogiri. "Naive," Kurogiri said as he suddenly bent Tagaru while he was cutting across the screen. Behind Nirengeki, all of a sudden, there was another warp hole, and Tagaru came out still in mid-swing. Setsuna pushed Nirengeki out of the way before he could do anything. Schlick. As soon as Tagaru finished his horrifying cut, Setsuna's body fell in half. The top half of her body fell to the ground lifeless first, then the bottom half. "Ha ha ha, and one falls down," Kurogiri said. "Struck down by her own classmate. This will not look good for UA." Tenya looked shocked, but he chose to force the bile that was rising in his throat down as he ran for the door. "Don't think I forgot about you," Kurogiri yelled as he began to float toward Tenya. Suddenly, Shoji, Sato, and Jirota jumped on him and squished him. Yosetsu quickly tried to fix Shoji's skin into the ground to keep Kurogiri under the pile of dogs, but it didn't work. Kurogiri just slipped away and then went after Tenya. At that moment, Ochako saw the metal plate in the mist and chose to take a chance. Ochako grabbed the metal plate right before Kurogiri passed Tenya. "Go, Iida," Ochako yelled as she used her quirk to throw Kurogiri into the air and said, "I don't know the theory, but if this is here, then it must mean you have a solid body here." As Kurogiri was thrown into the air, he yelled, "Shit, my body." When Tenya got to the door, she tried to pry it open but found that it was completely locked. "We made sure to lock every door in case this happened," Kurogiri teased as he gathered himself, "so just give." "Surprise!" Setsuna yelled as her face floated in front of Kurogiri. This shocked him enough to make him stop for a moment, but then Setsuna's bottom half came up and kicked him even harder. Kosei built a platform in the air for her bottom half to use to catch up. Sato and Jirato ran toward the door with their fists clenched. "Iida, we got the door," Sato yelled. Tenya moved quickly as the two powerhouses punched the door open so hard that the hinges flew off. To make things even slower for Kurogiri, Nirengeki quickly used his ability, Twin Impact, to hit something and fire the pieces of it at him. All of them yelled, "Goo," as Iida ran out the door and sped back to UA in top gear. He went to call for help. Kurogiri sighed, "The game is over." He split off from the group and set out to find Tamura. He told himself off for thinking the girl was already gone. If he had paid more attention, he would have seen that the blood that should have been pouring out wasn't. When Setsuna turned to look at the group, she sighed and said, "What? Why are you guys looking at me like that?" Kyoko yelled, "You're alive." "Well, of course I am. How else would I be talking?" Setsuna joked, "Did you forget my quirk?" She began to speak, "Well, no, but I was afraid you didn't get the chance to activate before Tagaru," but stopped short as she wiped her eyes. Setsuna softly rubbed Kanoko's head and stopped in front of Tagaru, who was just staring at the blades on his arms. "I ain't going anywhere yet," he said. Setsuna slapped Tagaru on the head and yelled, Hey, wake up. Before staring at Setsuna, Togura blinked a few times to try to get rid of the sudden pain. Tokage, I'm so sorry, Togura said. I should have known the villain would have teleported me like that. Even after seeing 13 Sensei being taken out by his own attack, I still didn't learn. Setsuna almost yelled, enough already, I'm still alive, so stop crying, as she hit him over the head again. She looked around and then looked out at the broken doorway, already making plans. Jurado, you're one of our fastest guys here, take 2 people here and go after Ida. We can't risk the chance that he be ambushed on the way back to UA. Jurado said, I will help Sir Ida, who will come with me. They talked for a short time and then decided to go with Jurado because they were better at long-range fighting than Jurado. As they were leaving, Setsuna had an idea. We should see if we can't go help our teachers, said Setsuna. We leave some of us here to guard the entrance while making sure to keep 13 Sensei alive while the rest of us go help out. Setsuna, Tagaru, and Nirengeki went to see if they could help Vlad and Shota, but Shoji, Yosetsu, Kanoko, and Kosei chose to stay behind to defend herself. Tagaru still looked sad about what he had done, so Setsuna decided to ease the mood. You know, you can now brag to any girl how your mighty blade pierced through someone so hard that it literally split them apart, said Setsuna. After blinking for a second, Tagara finally got the double meaning and blushed. Once they got to the top of the stairs, though, they were frozen with fear as they looked out into the central plaza. Shota was hurt and lying on the ground while Nomu shook him like a doll. Nomu broke Shota's left arm and legs as extra security to make sure he wouldn't move while Shigaraki teased him. Shota thought, shit, I know I got rid of his quirk. The fact that he can easily snap my body like a twig shows this is his base strength. He's almost as strong as All Might. Shota groaned in pain as Nomu slammed his head into the ground. The others and Tsuyu got to the edge of the flood zone just in time to see Shigaraki break Shota's arm apart. They then saw Nomu crush their homeroom teacher and shook with fear. Denki, who was being led by Kyoka and was still in his herp-derp state, was also scared and hugging Kyoka to stay alive. Kyoka couldn't blame him because she was being mean to him too. The others tried to get deeper into the water to blend in with the background. Shigaraki Tamura, Kurogiri said as he warped next to Shigaraki. Shigaraki asked, what is it? Did you kill 13? I put him out of action, but there were students that I did not manage to disperse. Despite locking the door, the students broke the door open and allowed one to escape. Shigaraki scratched his neck slowly at first, then quickly and furiously. He was angry and told Kurogiri that he would have killed him if he wasn't their escape route. Game over for sure now, Shigaraki said. We can't win if they throw dozens of pro heroes at us. I guess our only choice now is to go home. Mineta jumped for joy when she heard that the bad guy was leaving and gave Tsuyu a big hug. He put his hand on Tsuyu's chest and squeezed it, either by accident or because he was a total pervert. Tsuyu's face went blank for a second before she grabbed Mineta by the head, pushed him into the water, and drowned him for a moment. Her cheeks turned a little red. I guess we're safe now, Hanta said with a sigh of relief. No, something is wrong, Tsuyu said, barely able to hold back her stomach pain. Shigaraki suddenly rushed at Tsuyu and said, before we leave, why don't we use this chance to crush his pride as the symbol of peace? Shigaraki had already put his hand on Tsuyu's head with all 5 fingers before anyone could do anything. She was shocked and relieved when she didn't fall apart. TCH, Shigaraki said with a curled lip. You're really a cool guy, aren't you, Eraserhead? Shota's strange trait made him raise his head and stare at Shigaraki with a death glare. Shigaraki only tilted his head to tell Nomu what to do, which was to hit Shota's head on the floor again. Shigaraki went for her head again after Tsuyu hit the hand away. She quickly taped Tsuyu's back and pulled her back even more when someone called her name. Shigaraki, watch out! Just in time, Shigaraki jumped to the side to avoid getting stabbed by the blood spikes. Shigaraki looked where the noise was coming from and saw Vlad King staring at him. His broken arm was sticking out toward him, and a trail of blood was coming from it. Vlad growled as he tried to crawl to protect the students. You won't hurt the students while I'm still breathing. There was no doubt that his attack was a last-ditch effort that had worn him out. After sarcastically saying, how sweet, Shiratori glared at a few bad guys who were still awake and said, "What are you guys staring at? Knock him out." While the other bad guys kicked Vlad's already badly hurt body, Shiratori just sighed and turned back to his first victim, who was already swimming away with the others. Shiratori asked Kurogiri in a silly voice, "Give me that frog girl. It will look bad on me if I let one of my original targets get away." She yelled, "What the hell was that?" as they tried to swim away from the central plaza. The other person replied, "I don't know, but we need to get away from there." As they were swimming away, all of a sudden, a black portal appeared in front of Suyu, who had been looking back because he was afraid he was being chased. She was so scared that she didn't hear her classmates telling her to stop. When Suyu went through the portal, she was free to fall right into Shiratori's open hand. As Suyu watched herself slowly fall to what looked like her death, her life flashed before her eyes. She thought about her little brother and sister, whom she would never see again. There was worry in her heart as she thought about how they would be without her help. They were always too busy to play with her kids, poor parents. She couldn't blame them for not being able to make it because they had to work to pay the bills. What would happen if she didn't take care of them? Would mom have to work from home more often? Her little brother and sister would have to live with a family member but not with her. The ones she didn't really like. When she talked about brother, she thought it meant he would be the man of the house. She felt bad about being one at such a young age. And finally, when she thought of men, she thought of Izuku, a boy she was interested in and liked. "I guess I won't be able to learn more about him. Jero," Suyu thought in a sad voice as the hand got close to her head. Shiratori seemed to be laughing out loud with joy at his kill and the fact that he was making Yue look bad. And the record by all might until someone yelled, "Get your hands off of Suyu-chan." All of a sudden, Izuku showed up next to Shiratori with his right arm outstretched behind him, ready to punch Shiratori. Arcs of lightning. Izuku twisted his body and started to pull back his fist to make the blow stronger while yelling a phrase that gave him confidence. Izuku yelled, "Smash!" when he felt his fit hit something. He had only used 40% of One for All because he was afraid that if he used it too much, it would hurt the person he was punching permanently. Still, when they hit, gusts of wind blew Suyu away from Shiratori, letting her roll off the ground and away from the hand. As the dust settled, Izuku could clearly hear Shiratori's voice making fun of him. "Ah, nice punch there. You a follower of All Might?" Izuku looked up and saw purple skin. He then looked up again and saw the Nomu staring at him. It turned out that Izuku punched the Nomu in the stomach because they were covering for Shiratori. How did that happen? Thing get here so quickly and block my attack? And why doesn't my punch hurt it? Izuku thought. "Well, no matter," said Shiratori. The punch was powerful, but Nomu was created to fight and kill All Might. "Nomu, crush the wannabe's hands while I finish off my prey. Can't let it escape like those damn dogs from P_Chem_N. Izuku yelled in surprise when Nomu grabbed his wrist and squeezed it as hard as she could while lifting him up. Suyu yelled, "Guru!" as she jumped to the side to try to save Izuku, but Shigaraki showed up again in front of her. Now, do what all froggers are doomed to do and die," Shigaraki told Suyu to calm down. As a voice growled, "I said." Shigaraki had to widen his eyes and look back at Izuku. "Get your damn hands off her." When Izuku pulled his leg back and fired it right into Shigaraki's face, it left a mark on his face and threw him away from Suyu. Shigaraki yelled, "Kurogiri! A little help here," when he saw that the mist villain wasn't doing anything to help. He looked at Kurogiri and saw that he was standing still with his eyes closed, as if he were in a trance. He yelled, "Kurogiri! What are you doing?" Hitoshi stepped out from behind the mist villain and said, "Sorry, but your friend here is a little busy right now. You can leave a message if you'd like." He didn't answer, but instead gave Hitoshi a mean look. It was clear that the brat had done something wrong, and Kurogiri wasn't ready to take that chance just yet. The way he felt told him that Hitoshi had been trying to get him to talk on purpose. Izuku had just tried to punch Shigaraki, and Kurogiri was about to step in to help when he heard a voice calling for him. "Hey, Mist Punk. You assholes tried to have us killed, but we took them out in 10 seconds flat. Bet whatever you have planned won't even work. We could probably take it out easily." "Foolish child, Kurogiri laughed as he turned to answer, "Do you not?" Hitoshi smiled and said, "Gotcha," as his quirk took over and put Kurogiri in a trance. Shigaraki looked at Nomu and told her to crush Hitoshi with a simple hand sign. The Nomu roared and let go of Izuku. It was about to run toward Hitoshi when all of a sudden he felt something wrap around his waist several times. "Who said you could go?" Izuku asked as he raised the power of 1 for all to 60%. As soon as Izuku kicked Kurogiri, he spun his lower body toward the ground several times before the Nomu let go. But Nomu's efforts to crush Izuku's wrists with all his strength were useless because Izuku's body was made of rubber and wasn't hurt in any way. Izuku was able to start rotating while swinging the Nomu like a flail with a roar. It seemed like Izuku was spinning faster and faster, and his arm was getting farther away from his body. Several of the bad guys who were beating up Vlad didn't see the fast-moving object coming at them. "Hey, what's that sound?" "I know, but it sounds like it's coming too." Izuku hit the bad guy with the Nomu and knocked him out, stopping the bad guy in his tracks. Izuku yelled, "Oklahoma Tornado Smash," as he finally let go of Nomu and sent her toward the landslide zone, where he knew none of his classmates were. The Nomu was thrown into the ground and buried there. The fact that Izuku was about to throw Nomu so hard into the ground that it made a mark shocked a lot of the people who were there. Izuku quickly said, "Let's leave this place." The other person agreed right away with that plan. Hanta pulled Mineta out of the water and started running toward the entrance. Kyoka helped Denki, who was slowly getting better. Hanta stopped next to Shota and used his tape to make a quick bandage to stop the bleeding. Then he had Mineta put some of his balls on his back so he could carry Shota to safety. Pony and Sen were already next to Vlad, where he was too big for them to carry. Hitoshi was about to move when rocks were thrown at him all of a sudden. After he got over his shock, Shigaraki picked up some rocks and threw them at Hitoshi. Hitoshi would have just blocked them with his arms if Shigaraki hadn't rushed at him. This made him nervous, so he tried to avoid it but tripped. But Tsuyu had already wrapped her tongue around Hitoshi's waist and jumped away with him before Shigaraki could reach him. But the rocks hit Kurogiri and woke him up. It was Kurogiri who growled, Wait, what happened? That brat." Hikaru snapped, "Nice to see you're finally back. What happened?" "The purple-haired brat put me under his control," said Kurogiri. "Probably brainwashing or puppet-like quirk. Seems to be activated by responding to him. Where's the Nomu?" "That jerk with the straw hat threw him into the wall. Kurogiri, that jerk needs to die." Shigaraki yelled as he started to violently scratch his neck again. Being able to throw Nomu that way is like a cheat code. If he gets stronger, he'll be like the final boss. Then perhaps it was a good call to have a few more villains waiting to intercept anyone that escaped from here and try to warn UA, pointed out Kurogiri. In fact, Tenya was having a hard time telling UA about what was going on while he was avoiding multiple attacks from bad guys. One of them seemed to be able to move the ground, and another one put up walls that made it hard for Tenya to get through. Tenya yelled as he jumped out of the way of another attack, "But I must get through. My classmates are counting on me." One of the bad guys yelled, "Oh, shut up and die," when she was hit by a laser beam, more specifically a naval laser. Jurito yelled, "Tsuruhita, we have come to your aid," as Yuga fired his naval laser as many times as he could. "Arg, these birds are so annoying," yelled someone else as Koda called a flock of birds to attack them. As Jurado raised his hands and tried to hit one of the bad guys with a two-handed hammer smash, the bad guy made a barrier in the way. "Tsuruhita, use this chance and get to UA now while we distract them," he yelled. Tenya began to say, but Yuga cut him off. "Go. I'll show these villains how marvelously outmatched they are," Yuga said. "We can take care of this." Tenya thought about it for a second before running again. "Oh no, you don't," yelled the bad guy who had the power to change the earth to try to stop Tenya. Recipro burst. Tenya yelled through his teeth, "It's now or never." Tenya quickly sped off into the distance, getting past the barrier that had been put up. 10 seconds later, Tenya could feel his engines starting to fail. "No, not yet. Not now," he begged and wished in his mind for his engines to keep working, Tenya thought. He got to the front door of the UA 3 seconds later. His engine gave out while he was building. Still, Tenya tried to keep going fast with just his legs, but he tripped and crashed into the front door. In fact, he would have if the door hadn't been open. Instead, he felt like he had crashed into something very soft and springy. Midnight cooed, "Oh, you're a naughty boy, aren't you?" as she took the hit. So eager to taste that forbidden fruit of a student-teacher relationship. As bad things as things were, Tenya would have blushed. Tenya yelled, "Sensei! Trouble! USJ! Villains!" He was almost babbling at this point. Midnight stopped teasing right away and started acting more seriously instead. She pressed the emergency button on her phone without being asked. Midnight snapped, "Tell me everything," as she ran toward the UA. Tenya tried to keep up with them in the teacher's garage, which was where the fastest public transportation vehicles were kept. Everyone on staff dropped what they were doing in an instant and gathered at the garage, getting ready to leave. Shigaraki complained, "Yeah, but they might be able to hold out for a while longer." "Indeed," Kurogiri said with a nod, then made another warp portal at the opening of the Nomu hole. After 1 second, the Nomu roared and jumped out of his crater into the portal, where he appeared next to the two main bad guys without getting hurt. Shigaraki yelled, "Nomu, kill those jerks." Nomu let out a roar and ran at Izuku and the others. Honta gasped, No, that's not good," as he tried to run faster. Izuku stopped and turned around. "Keep going," he told him. "Jero, what are you going to do?" Suyu asked, her voice partly filled with worry about what Izuku was going to do. "Now go," Izuku said as he used one for all again at 60%, "I'm going to make sure no one gets hurt anymore." Izuku let out a shout and stooped down to meet the Nomu head-on, leaving a crater in the ground as he did so. He spun as he ran forward with his right arm stretched back. The Nomu let out a roar and threw a full power punch at Izuku. Izuku threw his corkscrew punch right into the Nomu's stomach, meeting the blow head-on. The resulting crash sent up a cloud of dust that covered the scene. As the people watching coughed and tried to blow off the dust, the cloud settled over Izuku's face, which had been punched inwards, and Izuku's fist made a small dent in the Nomu. "And that's one down," said Shigaraki. "I don't know who you are or how strong you are, but Nomu was bioengineered to take down All Might. No matter how strong your punch is, Nomu's quirk, shock absorption, can easily tank All Might's power and even match him in power. And now you're dead, Straw Hat Brat." When the students saw Izuku get punched in the face, it made their hearts drop. Vlad, who was only partially awake, felt a deep regret that went straight through his heart. Suyu didn't know why, but she felt like her heart was being torn apart. "I see," Izuku said in a low voice that shocked both the students and the bad guys. "That's how he's still standing up. Good to know." Nomu screamed as he pulled his right fist back and got his left fist ready to punch. When Izuku's face went back to normal, he quickly flipped backwards and hit the Nomu in the jaw with a powerful kick. Pony yelled, "You're alive." "How?" said Shigaraki. "Your quirk. It doesn't just let you extend your limbs and somehow make your attacks more powerful, does it?" Izuku's response was to blow a raspberry, which made Shigaraki even more angry. "Nomu, kill him. I don't care anymore, just kill him." As soon as Nomu roared and went to attack, he was frozen in a huge block of ice. "Took me longer to get back here," said Shota when he appeared with the others. "Your grunts weren't very good at delaying us. Plus, there's no need for the symbol of peace to solve this, as we can handle this ourselves." When Kurogiri tried to cover them in a black mist out of the blue, Shigaraki growled at the growing crowd. He laughed and said, "As long as I can send you all away, then there's no need to worry." People in the class started to get ready to fight back when Die. Katsuki flew at Kurogiri out of the blue and hit him right on the metal plating he was wearing. "Gotcha, ya damn shadow warping asshole," Katsuki yelled as he held onto the metal. "You're just what I imagined you'd be. Only certain parts of your body can transform into portals. All that smoke is just to hide your real body. If you were truly smoke, then you'd never say that was dangerous earlier. So don't move, otherwise, I'll blow you up on the spot." "URG, Kurogiri moaned. "Tokiyami-san. Kirishima-san." Izuku called out, "Where did your group come from?" It chirped, "We came from ruins." He asked, "The conflagration zone, why?" "Can you guys split off into the squall zone and mountains?" said Izuku. "Some of our classmates are most likely still there, and the more people that can help out the better. Hiryu asked, "Are you sure you don't need help here?" "We've got this covered," Izuku said with a nod. "Please. I will go aid the souls trapped at those treacherous peaks," Obara told me. After agreeing, they went their separate ways, leaving Eiichiro, Shota, Katsuki, and Izuku to take care of the middle. When Eiichiro heard that Mina was still missing, he wanted to go find her on his own, but he wasn't sure what to do. But he stayed after Tetsu promised to find her in his place. "Why don't you just give up now?" Eiichiro asked with a grin as he slammed his fists together. "You're outnumbered and outmatched." "Ah, looks like I'm in a pinch," Shigaraki said. "But luckily, like all games, I have a trump card. Nomu, we need our gate back. Then slaughter them all." To everyone's surprise, Nomu got out of his frozen prison. Then they almost choked as the Nomu's frozen arms and leg broke off in the ice, only for those parts to grow back. "I thought his quirk was shock absorption," Izuku exclaimed, then narrowed his eyes, "unless he has a secondary quirk." "Bingo!" smiled Shigaraki. "His second quirk is super regeneration. Now be a good hero and die." The Nomu ran at Katsuki out of the blue and tried to punch him with all his strength. If the punch had hit him, it would have killed him right away. It took a lot of Katsuki's attention to keep Kurogiri from getting away, so she couldn't even respond to Nomu. But Eiichiro, who was closest to Katsuki, was able to act quickly enough to push him away while making his skin harder. When Nomu punched Eiichiro in the ground, he bounced several times and hit a wall after going through several trees. "Kirishima-san!" Izuku yelled in fear. He hurt Eiichiro so much that he yelled, "Arr! He broke my bones." Eiichiro was still alive and aware, which was good news. This was bad news. Even though he crossed his arms to protect himself, the Nomu's punch was strong enough to break both of his arms' radius and ulna bones and crack his ribs. Katsuki was well aware that getting hit would have killed him right away. He knew that. Hedgehog hair. He still didn't know anyone's name, and he didn't want to, was stronger, and the fact that he saved him made him mad. Shota quickly frozen Nomu's legs out of desperation, and Katsuki pointed his left grenade gauntlet at Nomu. He smiled a little because he would finally be able to use one of the things he had his support company build for him as a trump card. Izuku was already getting out of harm's way, and he was pulling Shota with him. He didn't think it was strange that Izuku knew what he was going to do. Katsuki yelled, "Die," as he pulled the pin. As Katsuki pulled the pin, Shigaraki quickly warped out of the way and Kurogiri was able to get to safety. Ding! As Nomu crossed his arms to protect his head, a huge explosion hit him. The explosion kept going through the flood zone and into the strong walls of USJ. The walls were built strong enough to take some of All Might's blows. Setsuna asked in a low voice from the stairs, "Is it over yet?" When her group saw what had happened, they were too scared to come down. "Kurogiri, is our Nomu still alive?" Shigaraki asked with some doubt. Kurogiri said, "I'm not sure." It had not occurred to them that the huge explosion would be so destructive. As the dust settled, Nomu was seen against the wall, his arms and legs cut off and his skin burned. The Nomu suddenly tilted his head back and roared as his new arms and legs grew back. His burned skin fell off, revealing fresh skin. Katsuki gaped and said, "No fucking way." Nomu got himself off the wall and then gave Katsuki a mean look. Shota sent a wall of ice at the Nomu right away to freeze it, but the Nomu just pushed through it. If Katsuki jumped back right away, the Nomu would grab his leg, lift him up, and throw him to the ground. As Katsuki coughed up blood from the blow, he screamed to move in his head as the Nomu raised both arms and got ready to hit him like a nail. Tagari yelled, "Shit!" and quickly turned his arms into blades as he charged down to help him, but he was too slow. While the Nomu hit, he made another cloud of dust. Finally, one jerk down, Shigaraki laughed, then frowned and said, "Oh, that's BS." When everything was quiet, Izuku was able to not only block the hit, but also stop it dead in its tracks by raising both hands to meet the hammer fist. But Izuku looked a little different now. Izuku's straw hat was pulled off his head and was now hanging around his neck. Arcs of lightning were all around him, and his normally shaggy green hair was now spiked backwards. Literally, the part that caught my attention the most was the green lightning coming out of the corner of his eyes. One for all, 100%.
So that's it for today. I will continue the story in next part. Till then, bye bye.